All right, last video. We are at the end of the tunnel here. I think the best way to approach doing any of these word problems is to always just read them through entirely first. All right, so let's do that. Let Y represent the total cost of publishing a book in dollars. Let X represent the number of copies of the book printed. Suppose that X and Y are related by the equation 25x plus 1100 equals y. Answer the questions below. Note that a change can be an increase or a decrease. For an increase, use a positive number. For a decrease, use a negative number. What is the change in the total cost for each book printed? What is the cost to get started before any books are printed? Okay, so let's think about this for a second, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to pull out any information that's really important here, and they have like all these like funny little acronyms for things like that. And I just, forget that stuff because it's one more thing you have to remember. I think just like anything in life, you decide, okay, this is important, this isn't important. It's kind of like if you're sweeping up a bunch of pile of stuff that's on the floor. Usually before you put it in the dustpan, you look through it and you make sure there's nothing important in there, all right? And that's kind of what we're doing is we're going to take what we want that's important out of this, and then we're going to ignore everything else, and throw it in the trash in our mind. In other words, forget about it. So let's take a look at this, all right? So X represents total cost of publishing a book, all right? That's kind of important because we need to know we need to know what it means, or why. Y represents the total cost of publishing a book. All right, so off on the side here, I'm going to write Y, and I'm going to say this is my cost. All right, total cost. I don't have to write all that stuff after it. It's just how much money I'm going to spend, my total cost. Okay, and I'll put the word total after it just to emphasize that after everything's said and done, Y is what is representing that. And then X represents the number of copies of the book printed. So let's simplify that, okay? And let's just say X represents the number of copies of the book printed. Let's simplify that and just say number of books, because basically that's what we're talking about. You're printing books. And so just number of books, all right? Suppose that X and Y are related by the equation 25x plus 1100 equals y. This is probably important because we're probably going to use this. All right, so in this equation, if you look at this equation, I'm going to write it down below here, and we've got 25x plus 1100. I'm writing it exactly as it is, equals y. Let's see if we can rewrite this as y equals mx plus b, because we know how to work with that. Well, all I have to really do is just flip things around. And when you have an equation, like if you have x equals 17, for example, you can rewrite that as 17 equals x. It doesn't matter. You can flip the two sides of the equation around, and it doesn't do anything to change it. So let's do that with this equation, and let's write it as y equals 25x plus 1100, and let's use that instead. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this. And now it's written in a form that works for me. Okay, and the reason it works for me because if it's in this y equals mx plus b format, I know that m is my slope. So if I look at this, the number before the x is going to be my slope. So 25. And when you're talking about an equation like this, slope is interchangeable with the word rate. It's my rate. And so I want to figure out what 25 means. Okay, that would be my next question is, all right, I got this number 25. Plus b is plus 1100. Well, that's my y-intercept. Okay, and in the case of this problem, that doesn't really help me because they're not asking me to graph it. They're asking me to interpret it and kind of figure out what this stuff means. So let's look at this. And let's just put some numbers in. Let's say, hey, I don't print any books. All right? I print 0 books. Okay, so if I print 0 books, that means that I take this 0 and I put it in for x, because that's what x is. X is the number of books. So if I put 0 in, you get 25 times 0 plus 1100. This whole thing goes away, and then you wind up with 1100. So your y is your total cost. So if you print 0 books, you've still spent $1,100. If we look up at these two questions here, it says, the second one says, what is the cost to get started before any books are printed? And that's kind of what we just figured out, right? Well, the cost is $1,100. So what that is that's your startup cost from the printer, and usually when you do anything with a printer of any kind, whether it's T-shirts, books, anything, they're going to have a flat fee, and that's the cost for them to program everything and have it all set up and ready to run. And then they just charge you a unit price for every unit you run after that. Okay? And so now it says, what is the change in the total cost for each book printed? So we should hopefully be able to figure out that if we're talking about change, we're talking about rate of change, and rate of change is always your slope. So if you can't understand that and can't just look at the number in front of x and recognize that it's slope, let's reason this out. All right? So supposing we print one book. If I print one book, I have 25 times 1 plus 1,100, because number of books printed is what you have, right? So that means I've spent $1,125, because 25 times 1 is 25 plus 1,100. Supposing I print 2 books, right? That would be 25 times 2 plus 1,100, which is going to give me 50 plus 1,100, which is 1,150. And then it goes on and on like that after on. If I do 3 books, right, it's going to be basically another 25 bucks, right? It's 25 times 3 plus 1,100, so you get 1,175. So you should be able to see that the change for each book printed, it goes up $25 each time. So if it goes up $25 each time, think about that. What that means is that each book costs 25 bucks to print. And you can pull that all right off of this equation right here. It's all right here. It's that number right here. So we didn't have to do any of this. It's good that we did, because now we understand why it works. But it's right in that equation. So you just go right up there and you go 25. You put it right down there and boom. You are set and ready to go. So I hope this has all helped you. The big thing with these word problems, and I mean this sincerely, is that they aren't as scary as everybody thinks they are. You just need to be patient, work through them, and just think about them a little bit. And I know you guys can do these. All right, so thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope these have been helpful, and good luck on your quiz.